All right, I'll call this meeting of the Plan Commission to order. Mr. Engstrom, Ms. Andel is not here tonight, so Mr. Engstrom will be fulfilling her duties quite nicely. If we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Buttry, Ms. Bindum, Mr. Fell, here. Mr. Fitch,
Here.
Mr. Hopkins, here. Mr. Otto, Mr. Storr, here. Mr. Trail.
We do have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Can I look at approval of the minutes, please, for the March 5th, 2015 regular Plan Commission meeting? Are there any changes? Or can I get a motion?
I move we approve the minutes.
Moved by Mr. Hopkins. Second by Mr. Trail. Any changes? All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The minutes are approved. We do have a piece of communication, which is a revision to some language relative to the plan case before us tonight, so we'll wait and I think cover that during the plan case. No continued public hearings, old business, or new public hearings. But under new business, we have cases number CCZBA 769-AT13 and CCZBA 773-AT14, requests from the Champaign County Zoning Administrator to amend the county zoning ordinance regarding regulations of stormwater, erosion, and sedimentation controls. Mr. Mahalik, please.
Thank you, gentlemen. So these two cases are interrelated. The first one, namely, amends the Champaign County zoning ordinance by amending the name of the county stormwater management policy to the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Ordinance. Also, it adds requirements that bring the county more in line with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System requirements, and adds various other requirements to ensure better erosion and sedimentation control. Secondly, we have case 733-AT14, and that amends what would be the newly named Champaign County, the Champaign County Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Ordinance to add requirements for grading and demolition permits for any project that disturbs more than 1 acre of land. Now, on March 26, 2015, the County Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval for both of these cases. And furthermore, the passage of case 773-1814 relies on the approval of case 769-AT13. So, as mentioned in the summaries, case 769-AT13 amends the name of the county stormwater management policy and adds a variety of requirements, bringing the county's policies more into conformance with national standards as overseen by the EPA. Furthermore, it adds a requirement for a land disturbance erosion control permit, and also ensures that development is in compliance with the IEPA's ILR 10 permit requirements. Furthermore, it adds a prohibition against erosion or sedimentation onto adjacent properties and adds a minimum erosion control and water quality requirements that are required for all construction or land disturbance. It'll also insert into the county's policies a hierarchy of best management practices when it comes to erosion and land disturbance. Going on to case 773-AT14, the grading and demolition permits that are required would have fees attached with them. Furthermore, they will comply with the EPA's ILR 10 general stormwater permit requirements. Now, in terms of applicability to the city has a separate erosion control ordinance and also a stormwater control ordinance under the subdivision ordinance. So those, let me to be a little more clear, the erosion control regulations and the stormwater regulations are separated in the city of Urbana. Second. Now, one of the main issues we are seeing here, though, is that The city's erosion control regulations do not apply in the ETJ, but its ETJ, but its stormwater management policies do apply. However, the regulations as proposed by the county would clash with the city's regulations. Therefore, we have a conflict. And it would be to the city's best interest and the county's best interest in resolving this conflict. And by resolving that conflict, the city would achieve several of its goals presented forth in the comprehensive plan, namely, one second here, namely, we are looking at goals 21, objectives 21.1 and 21.2, and in minimizing conflicts between the county's work and the city's work. Furthermore, this ordinance, as proposed, would achieve several other goals stated forth in the city's comprehensive plan, including protecting its natural resources, encouraging consistent development regulations, and correcting areas of stormwater infiltration, and reducing the impacts of development on stormwater conditions. Now, to better minimize the conflict between the city's current regulations and the county's proposed regulations, the city's engineering department has proposed inserting a new section into the proposed ordinance, and this would be under section 4.3, and it would be 4.3b. And the text of that proposed change is on page 7 of the memorandum. And it reads, construction on lots and subdivisions or other developments that are subject to municipal subdivision regulations containing standards for the detention and controlled release of stormwater for provision of adequate site drainage and for the protection of existing drainage facilities or on lots subject to the application of such standards by means of an annexation agreement. And really what this would do is it would exempt areas in the city's ETJ from the county's regulations and preserve the city's stormwater regulations within those areas. By doing this, we would help minimize conflict, as noted, and further promote protection of our water resources and enhance management of stormwater within the community. Now, going to the summary of staff findings, as listed on page 7, as established by state law, the City of Urbana has the ability to protest changes, additions, and modifications to Champaign County's land use and zoning regulations. Number 2, the adoption of this proposed amendment in case 769 AT 13 ensures the county's conformance with regulations set forth by the IEPA. Number 3, the changes to the county's stormwater and erosion practices as proposed in case number 769 AT 13 and 773 AT 14 will not conflict with the city's practices in areas of erosion control. 4, the changes to the county's stormwater and erosion practices as proposed in case number 769 AT 13 and 773 AT 14 are generally compatible with the city's practices in the area of stormwater management within the city's ETJ. And 5, the Champaign County Zoning Administrator has agreed to modify the proposed ordinance changes in order to avert a conflict of jurisdiction with 1.5 miles of the city boundary. Now, with the change proposed to section 4.3b of the proposed county's regulations, Mr. Hall has also proposed a secondary change, and this can be seen in the handout that was passed out. And this would be to subsection C of area 4.3, and it would read, construction of additions to existing structures when the total increase in impervious area is less than 10,000 square feet relative to the impervious area that existed on February 20th, 2003. And that would be another area that would be exempt from the county's regulations. Now, Mr. Hall, as well as Mr. Bennett from the city's engineering department, are here, or excuse me, Public Works Department, are here to discuss these changes in depth. And I'm also here and I'm to answer any questions you may have. And now when it comes to both of these cases, the Plan Commission has 3 options. You could forward both of these cases or either to the City Council with recommendation of no protest. You could forward either or both cases to the City Council with a recommendation of no protest contingent upon specific provisions to be identified. Or C, forward either or both plan cases to the City Council with a recommendation of protest. Now, as noted, the staff recommendation is to follow along with Mr. Hall's recommended, and Mr. Bennett's recommended changes to the county's proposed ordinance, ensuring that both land that is in the city's ETJ is exempt from the county's proposed regulations, as well as the new addition proposed by Mr. Hall this evening in subsection C. And just checking, just for guidance here, Exhibit A is a summary of major text changes included in Case 769 AT 13. Most recently, this was received and placed on file by the Champaign County Environmental Land Use Committee. And then here's basically it's just a summary of all the significant and more of the minor changes to the county's ordinance. And attachment B is a list of changes included in case number 773-1814, and as of March 26, 2015, the Champaign County Zoning Board of Appeals recommended these for approval. And just to note, this handout will be attached to a memorandum that will be going to, or excuse me, yes, that will be going to the Champaign County Land Use Committee. And if I am wrong on that, I might have skipped some areas in the memo, so please be sure to let me know if you have any questions for myself or Mr. Hall or Mr. Bennett. It's my first time dealing with the wonderful world of stormwater. Thank you. From my understanding, these two are areas shaded in gray are additions that were not in the county's regulations that are being placed into to bring the county's regulations more in line with the city's regulations. But I could, Mr. Hall or Mr. Bennett might correct me on that.
I just want to confirm what we're adding.
Mm-hmm.
We're adding B.
Yes.
Proposing that B be added. And proposing that relative to the impervious area that existed on February 20, 2003 will be added to C.
From my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I was intrigued by the note on page A-3, the $50 fee for a minor LDEC permit is to pay a portion of the county costs for permitting and inspection. What does Urbana charge for this? City of Urbana. Oh, hey, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Brad Bennett, the Assistant City Engineer. I work in the Engineering Division of Public Works. Land development, erosion control kind of fall under my area of responsibility, so that's why I'm here tonight to answer any question that you have. But regarding the erosion control permit fee, the City of Urbana actually charges for just single-family residential erosion control permit. We call that Class 2. It's a $50 fee for that. If you're a non-residential property, so like commercial, industrial, multifamily, it's a $200 fee. And then for what we call Class 1 permits, which is the larger permits, so it'd be sites over an acre of disturbed area, we charge $500 for the first 5 acres, and then any additional acreage over the first 5 acres is $20 an acre. And Champaign basically charges the same. When we actually went through this whole erosion control ordinance creation process back in, it was adopted in 2007, Champaign and Urbana and the Village of Savoy actually all worked very closely together to have a consistent ordinance between the communities, so there wasn't a lot of variation between the two.
Thank you. Anything further? Mr. Storr?
We could probably discuss stormwater for considerable length of time, but thank you for clarifying that. Do these costs cover the, at least nominally, cover the costs for doing the oversight and inspection?
No, they don't, and they were actually not set with the intent of it. I think it was more to place a value on the permit itself, you know, as opposed to giving it away for free. It's also based on what other communities were charging when we were going through the process of coming up with what the fee schedule was. We looked at what other Central Illinois communities were charging and tried to be consistent with that. We also, kind of in the public input process, in our communications with, you know, contractors, land developers, I mean, they were obviously very cost conscious and concerned about the impacts of the fee. So that all kind of factored in together to come up with what the fee schedule is. But it doesn't probably cover the actual cost of the whole permitting and inspection. Some of that is actually covered by the stormwater utility fee. There is an engineering technician that's paid out of that fee, and one of their duties is to actually manage the erosion control, you know, permit process. So they review the plans, they make sure the contractor actually installs the erosion control measures prior to any construction starting, and then they go out on a weekly basis and monitor to make sure that they comply. And if they see non-compliance, then they're writing, you know, notification letters, you know, violation letters, and, you know, taking enforcement actions if necessary.
Mr. Story?
Thank you. They go out probably after a storm or something like that to kind of check to see if there's any violation.
Absolutely. And even if it doesn't rain, we try to at least swing through every week just to make sure that, you know, no subcontractors are driving over the silt fence or, you know, tracking mud out onto the street, which can occur even when there's not a rainfall event.
Is this placing any kind of a burden on the engineering department, or is it something that is costing far in excess of
Mr. Storer, are you talking about the
fees? The fees.
Are you talking about the county's fees or the city's fees?
The city's fees.
'Cause I don't think the city's fees are pertinent to this case. I mean,
Oh.
Th-
Okay.
they're interesting, but and you probably got a point in what you're asking, but I think we're really focused on this ordinance. Okay? Thanks.
Mr. Fitch?
Mr. Mahalik.
Just responding to your question earlier about the changes with this new communications. Section 4.3 here, as you can see on your screen, this is from the updated ordinance as it was recommended by approval from the county ZBA before the changes that are being proposed here this evening. So as you'll see on your screen, you could have here, you have 4.3B, which based on our changes being proposed here tonight, will be moved to 4.3C and added onto, and then the new 4.3B would be exempting land in the city's ETJ from the county's regulations. Just to display that change a little more clearly.
Great. Thank you. Now, I will note that in the packet, we generally do get the marked up ordinance change. I don't think we did this time, or if I just went online, I might have missed it. I did not go to the county's website.
Yeah, the marked up ordinance was very long, so we only included the link with the packet this time.
Okay. Yeah, I think probably in the future we'd like to have it.
Will do.
Even, I know it's saving trees, but it would be nice. Any further questions for Mr. Mahalik? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem, Chris.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to address the Plan Commission on this case? If not, I'll close the public input portion of the hearing, and we'll discuss the case and possibly vote on the case. Is there any discussion? Any comments? Concerns? Motions? Mr. Storr?
I don't think that we beat the fees enough to death. And I'm curious why the county doesn't charge more, charge a fee that's commensurate with the cost for doing the inspection and monitoring Are we, I wonder if this is kind of a way of supporting development.
I think Mr. Hall from the county would be the best to answer that.
Mr. Hall? If you could just state your name for the cameras.
I'm John Hall, zoning administrator for Champaign County. I don't know that I've ever heard someone ask whether the county is trying to support development in that way, but it's certainly not intentional. Brad talked about 3 different fees for the 3 different types of permits the city requires. I'm glad to find out that the city's fees for the minor permit, the residential permit, is exactly what we've proposed. I actually didn't even try to coordinate that. It just seemed $50 would be a nominal amount. Of course, we're also getting our zoning use permit fees, which we already get. And this $50 is exactly as Brad described it. It's just to put a value on the permit itself. That class of development is actually seeing the biggest impact overall because a homeowner, well, we talked about the costs in our background analysis. It's up to at least a few $1,000s for the erosion controls on that individual lot. The developer really is already putting erosion controls up, maybe not quite as rigorously as they're going to now that we start visiting their site weekly and double checking. But they've actually been doing that for some time. So that very smallest class of permit is the one that really sees the biggest impact. And in fact, we had no negative comments about that in our public hearing. In regards to the major fee, Brad talked about the city having a fee that starts out at $500 and then it's based on area. We already get a substantial fee for the stormwater drainage plan reviews, and the like I said, erosion controls are already part of that. It is true that we will be doing inspections, but in terms of the scope of work, those weekly inspections within our MS4 area are a pretty minor element, and that's why we didn't propose any additional fees there. And again, we didn't get any negative comments in our public hearing about that. We think maybe we'll see 5 of these a year, 5 new ones each year. Our MS4 area is 1% of our jurisdiction, so it's a very small area. There are more than 5 times as many permits in that area, which is why the EPA targeted that area. But for us, it's a very small blip in terms of numbers of permits. We will now have to visit those sites every week and after every half-inch rain or greater. But we think we can do that with no additional staff. So we are really trying to absorb what costs we can without translating it into fees.
Well, I think that the county general tax support in support of the development, it should be recognized, and that I think that it should be noted that the full cost of inspection is not being covered. But I think that it's a good thing for the county to do this sort of inspection. I've seen some substantial, in the course of my work, substantial problems because of construction. But thank you for noting that and coming.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Any further discussion, questions, motions? I saw dueling shrugs earlier.
Okay, I move CCZBA case number 769AP13 and case number 773AT14 be sent to the City Council with a recommendation of no protest, contingent on the additions and modifications recommended by the Urbana Engineering. Public Works.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Hopkins. Seconded by Mr. Fell. Is there any further discussion? If not, when you're ready, Mr. Ingstrom, if we could have a roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Fell? Mr. Fitch?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Storr?
Yes.
Mr. Trail?
And motion passes. And it'll go to the city council soon,
The first Monday in May.
first Monday in May, whatever day that is. Roughly the 4th. Not roughly the 4th. Mr. Malik knows. It's the 4th. All right. Well, that concludes that case. Thank you. We aren't going to have any audience participation, I surmise. Do we have a staff report?
Just to let you know, Lori Pearson was appointed to be the new planning manager. She will begin on May the 5th.
Excellent news. We don't have a study session, therefore we are adjourned.